Thank you, Azadeh, for the introduction, and thank you all for joining us today and allowing us to share our memories and our stories about the loved ones we've lost under the Iranian regime, especially during the 1988 massacre. My father was a lover of music, Shahjarian in particular. He was a student, a believer in human rights, a father, a son, a husband, an activist, but most importantly, my father was a human being. In 3 days, it will be 32 years from when he was hung from a crane, and I was robbed of the chance of ever having him as my dad. My father, Afagh Namvar, and my mom's brother, Saeed Mohammad Taher, met in grade school and became best friends. They both believed that their country needed better leadership and were both proud members of the MEK. My uncle was one of 4 children. He was quiet and caring. He loved his family and his country. My father and uncle worked alongside my mother, passing out newspapers and working towards a better Iran. The Iranian guards knew of my family's beliefs, and because of that, my mother and father were constantly on the run. Even so, after I was born, they were rushed out of the hospital because they were warned the Revolutionary Guards knew where they were and they would find them and arrest them. During the summer of '88, my father was getting ready for a rescue trip. See, my father was well acquainted with the secret back ways out of Iran, so he was one of the main people who safely took families out of the country. He was able to rescue me and my mother and take us through Pakistan into Iraq, and was returning to Iran for one last rescue. That last rescue and that last trip in particular was important to my father because he was going to get my uncle. They were going to return together. When he reached his destination, my father was tricked into arriving at a house where inside Revolutionary Guards were waiting. They tortured him, they broke his legs, they blinded him, and they asked him for any information about the MEK. When he didn't give any information up, they took him to the notorious Evin prison where they executed him and my uncle, who had already been arrested. My uncle was killed from a firing squad. I was lucky enough to have met my mother 3 years ago, and she was able to provide me my first and only picture of my father. It was the first time in my life that I'd seen what he looked like. This is my father. Unfortunately, he will never get to see what I look like. The last time my father saw his daughter, I was 3 months old. And I sometimes wonder what went through his mind when he said goodbye to me. He was only 28 years old. 28 years old. That's 5 years younger than I am now. And still the people and the regime who killed my father and my uncle have not been held accountable. It's been 32 years, and still they are taking fathers away from daughters. It's been 32 years, and they still have not faced their actions. How many more families have to be separated? How many more families have to be tortured? There are times where I think about that little girl in me that yearned for her father, and I think about all the little girls in Iran who are still living that nightmare. We need to take action, and the Iranian regime needs to be held accountable for all 30,000 lives they took that summer of '88. Thank you.